Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast and we return. We're left it a bit later this week, deliberately. We have for the big, of course, preview ahead of the North London derby to come. Big game. Big month for Tottenham Hotspur. Can we get our season firmly back on track? Delighted to have returning guest, one special guest joining us. We only allow it for twice a season we do. Before we bring in the man, let's bring in a couple of brilliant men on this Last One on Spurs. George Achilles is back in the house. George, thank you so much. Stress-free Spurs over the last couple of weeks. Raring to go?
Yeah, I mean, nice to have a little break as usual, but we've got another one coming up in like 3 weeks anyway. But yeah, games coming thick and fast, and obviously North London derby. Looking forward to sort of breaking this down with you guys, and yeah, happy to be on. And let's get into it.
Oh, man, certainly. And look, we can't do about the king of Spurs Twitter. The one-liners, the man that we all rely hope on Spurs Twitter land. Billie T's in the house. Bill, thank you so much for coming back on for this one. How are you?
Yeah, very good, man. I feel relaxed. I've lost all my grey hairs in the last 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to the next international break already.
Isn't that life as a Spurs fan? We just wait for it to come round now. We do.
Can't wait.
Bring
on those friendlies.
I tell you, the amount of games we've got coming up in this next month or so. I was speaking to George off air. It's going to be absolutely crazy. We'll know one way or another if we are back on track. Also joining us, never a dull moment. I said him bizarrely off air. He gets more love from Spurs fans than Timo Werner does in the Tottenham ground. We've got the wonderful, he's the judge himself. Lee judges returns to Last One on Spurs. Lee, thank you for your time, mate. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I feel very honoured that I'm more popular than Timo Werner. There you go, So that is good, So I'm happy with that.
I'm trying to keep your feet firm on the ground, Lee. Not getting you too carried away, right? Not getting you too carried away.
Yeah, I suppose that's not right. I suppose if you said James Maddison, I'd have been too big-headed there, would have I? So there you go.
Well, listen, on the point of how we're all feeling, before we get into the crux of the game itself, I mean, look, we are a couple of days away from Derby Day. And it's one of those where, of course, we had the international break sandwiched right in the middle of it. So I'll start off with George. George, how are you feeling going into the North London derby? It's creeping up on us here in these next couple of days. Excited, nervous? Obviously, we've got a lot of team news to get through. What's happened over the past couple of weeks? Feelings on it for you, George?
Yeah, for me, it's always excitement building up to it. Then in the morning of the delusion kicks in, and we're thinking we're going to win 4-5-0. And then maybe an hour or two before kickoff, that's when the nerves really start cracking in, especially on the way to the game. So, yeah, I'm right now, I'm excited, looking forward to it. Time to get some payback. But I just know for a fact right before kickoff, I am going to be, might need to bring a change of underwear, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games where I know for everyone out there, no one really does enjoy it. I think you can only enjoy it when it's over and the result has gone in your favour. Bill, how are you feeling? I mean, look, you would never know by your ex if you're nervous, if you're excited. You give us all kind of feelings going into the game. How are you feeling on the back of this? It feels like huge tournament to come for both clubs.
Yeah, I feel absolutely horrendous, to be honest with you, mate. I've never enjoyed this build-up. This is when I start having dreams in a few nights before, genuinely. Start having a few dreams about what the score's going to be. It's been good with the international break, so I've just been trying to put it off completely. Like, I'm not even thinking about it, but now it's coming around. It's time to face reality, and I hate it. I hate the build-up to this game, to be honest with you, mate. And even if we're in a relatively good run of form or above them in the league or whatever, I still hate it. It's a horrible feeling, isn't it? Like the dread that's coming. But time to face reality now, I think.
It is days away. Lee, come over to you. Been an interesting last fortnight. I think we've seen it all. The Forever Arsenal tells us definitely your kind of moods going into the game. How are you feeling, Lee? Now we're literally a couple of days away from kickoff.
It's mad because, like, what the guys have just said, we're exactly the same. I feel exactly the same. You know what I mean? You love it and hate this game, don't you? Like, there's just something about it. Could you do without it? Sometimes I feel like I could, but then when you get that win and everything like that, maybe not. But if you get the defeat, you probably do think that. So it's So, do you know, I don't know if you know this, guys, but I've told this earlier on that Arsenal have never won 3 games on the spin.
I was going to come on to that.
Believe it. I can't, that is incredible. Like, so,
Let's hope we don't have to think about it, Lee.
Well, I never thought that, it just shows you, like, Arsenal have had some unbelievable teams, and not been able to do it. So it just shows you how hard it is to go to Tottenham and get wins. It's difficult. And every time I'd always say, like, I don't know how you guys feel, but I'd always say home win, and I'll take a draw away from home.
Yeah,
I take that now every single time. Like, because I think, like, as much as it's great to win at Tottenham, it's a difficult place to go to, like.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, it's one of those games where I think you said at the start of the show, you can never really enjoy them. You only enjoy them when it's over and you've got the result. But it's been a good and bad, you'd say, international break. We'll start with Arsenal and where we are with them. Obviously, we'll start with a guest. We'll start with a guest, guys. We'll start with a guest. I know many might think he is a guest. He is a guest. He is on this one. It's been the good, the bad, and maybe the ugly, Lee. I mean, you've had the good news that Mikel Arteta, if you want to call it good news, I know a couple of years ago it might have been a different story if I said this to you, your reaction, but he has signed a new contract with the football club. And, again, it's been a difficult period for Arsenal during that international break where they have lost Martin Odegaard, what we're led to believe in the minimum period of 3 weeks. Calafiori also unfit. We knew beforehand Declan Rice was suspended for the game. Obviously, you also lost your summer signing in between that as well. Give me your feelings, Lee, going into the game. I'm really curious to know if you were as confident if I asked you about this game just before the international break 2.5 weeks ago.
Oh, without a doubt, if you've got Declan Rice and Odegaard in your midfield, you're going to be confident. But wherever you go, like, they're two class players, and I think they just take you. They're A-listers as far as midfielders are concerned. So obviously losing them two is disappointing. Not going to. I feel more aggrieved about it. If we'd have lost Martin Odegaard, say, against Brighton, you can tolerate it. Oh well. But, like, to lose them on international break is a lot harder to take than if it was playing. It's like if you take your Rolls Royce out and you bang it, it's fair enough. But, like, if your mate borrows it and bangs it, you're going to be a little bit more grieved with it, and that's how I feel about it. Like, so from that point, it's disappointing. But listen, I'm not in this camp. I'm not in this camp of we've got injuries and all that. Like, that's part and parcel of football. Always has been. Like, suspensions as well. As harsh as it is, it's a reality. That was always, once he got sent off against Brighton, you knew that he weren't going to play against Spurs. So, Marino being out as well, so you've got to deal with it. Like, and whatever happens, Arsenal have got a lot of options in there still. There's still players that can play, and they can put Havertz back in there. They can play Trossard. They've got Jorginho to come in. It ain't all doom and gloom from an Arsenal point of view. That's how I see it. Ideally, when you go into Spurs and Manchester City, you want your best players playing. But in the real world, it don't happen. And there's been times when Spurs haven't had their best players playing. You've got to get on with it. And that's how it is. It's a tough ask to go to Tottenham. I will say this. We went there last season with Rice and Odegaard. I didn't think we played that well. Even though we was 3-0 up, I didn't think we played that well, and we was hanging on at the end. So, it's sometimes it's you've got someone has got to come out of what's it like? The squad's there for a reason. You don't bring in these players and spend a lot of money on them and then go, well, we don't use them. Ideally you don't. This is the game that you want. For me, the ideal thing would be like Rice and Odegaard play on Sunday. You rest them against in Italy, and then you go again at Man City. But it's not the case. So I'm still confident that we're good enough. We've got good enough players to win. We've got still all of our back four, unless something drastic happens in the next couple of days, is going to be there. Still got our front three. So it ain't, unless he changes it, but that's up to him if he does. So I'm like, you've got to be quietly confident that we'll be okay. Ideally, we would like them playing. Simple as that.
Absolutely. Look, I'll come to George. George, it has been a difficult last couple of weeks for Spurs. We know it's maybe given us a chance to hopefully get some players back from injury. I think the biggest two going into the game will be Mickey van der Ven, Dominic Solanke's fitness, and we'll obviously get an update on that from Ange Postecoglou in his presser on Friday. I mean, Richarlison, difficult to know with Richie his situation because that feels like it changes week to week with regards to his fitness. But how are you feeling, George? Like I say, on the back of Lee there admitting team news wise, he would have liked to have Rice, Odegaard fit for this one, Calafiori as well available, and along with their summer signing. How much could this be a benefit to Spurs going into a game where I think there is always slight trepidation? And by Lee's admission there, didn't play hugely well last season, but found themselves 3-0 up at the break. Crazy game.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, right? I mean, I'm sure Lee will agree that you'd obviously want Declan Rice and Odegaard there. They're quality midfielders. But at the end of the day, we've seen this sort of fixture in particular, it's such a cliche, but the form and it does go out the window because historically, I know the last couple of years has not really gone our way, but historically, as we've alluded to, home team does better, away team doesn't. But we've had Arsenal had a fully fit team when we played them away from home last year, and we looked really good, came away with a 2-2 draw, potentially could have won that game as well. So I think it's one of those ones where they've got an abundance of options. They've still got Partey, Jorginho, Havertz can come in midfield. Timber's been experimented in midfield before, so that's a potential if Zinchenko plays at left back. So we can't downplay the fact that they're 5 years into Arteta's reign. Like the players are going to be drilled on how to play. So we definitely cannot go in underestimating that midfield. And I think for me, the main focus is more on the availability of our players because we saw, and I was saying to you beforehand, we saw in the Newcastle match how much we missed Solanke. I think Dragoshin did very well stepping up in the absence of Van der Ven, and I think he's a brilliant centre-back. So, look, if push comes to shove and he has to play instead of him, I won't be as frustrated. But if I'm being honest, not having that central striker, an actual proper striker in the box to finish these chances we were creating, that was huge against Newcastle, and that could be a big problem again if he's not available. So for me, Solanke's the big one that I'm watching out for.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, I'll come to you. I think, like I say, we've all been holding our breath over the last couple of weeks to see what Spurs will have in terms of the treatment table going into the Arsenal game. How confident are you, Bill, if we have got the likes of Solanke, Van der Ven, and potentially Richarlison off the bench available? How much does that change your viewpoint going into this one on the back of Arsenal's team news?
Yeah, I think it changed it massively, to be honest. I was watching the England game. The good thing about us at the moment is it's really relaxing having no Spurs players in the England team because, we can't pick up any of those injuries that we're used to. But I think it's one of those things. I'll never be confident going into this game. Even as I say, even when we're at our best under like Pochettino, it's still one of those games that you can never really feel confident going into. But I think we've got the best circumstances we've had in a while. Just the fact that two of their very best players, arguably two of their top three best players are injured, and we've hopefully getting some players back. But it's been one of those weird ones. They haven't showed any training footage yet or anything like that, and so you can't really gauge whether Solanke or Van der Ven are going to be fit. But I think Van der Ven in particular for me will be the big one, just because he's so important to the way that we play him. We saw against Newcastle, without Van der Ven, we're so easy to open up just one pass over the top, and we don't have that defender that can get back with his recovery pace. So if those two players are fit, I'll feel a lot better. I wouldn't say confident, but I definitely feel a lot better.
Lee, I want to talk to you about form. And, it's when you look at, Arsenal's form in general, I think the one thing you've got to say about them is that I think you've only dropped, when you look at points-wise, you've dropped in 2024. I think you've got to look at, it's Aston Villa, Manchester City, and of course, there's one other game in there that you've dropped points in. It's Brighton. It's quite a formidable, and I hate giving Arsenal any credit, it's quite a formidable record. I think you said previously that maybe it's the home form that's let Arsenal down. I just want to know from you, from what the form is of this season, how do you feel right now as an Arsenal fan? Do you feel confident in terms of going head-to-head with Manchester City this season?
Oh, that's a good question. I did at the beginning of the season, and then Haaland's just scoring hat-tricks for fun and things like that. And do you know what? I'll be really honest. When I see the team sheet for the Arsenal game on the Saturday and on a Sunday, I got a good kick in the old goalies. And I don't mean this horribly. Like when we played Wolves, we had every player that played in the Euro final playing, and love and behold, Man City go to Chelsea, and it's like they rested all of them. There was no Foden, there was no, none of them were playing. Stones didn't play, Walker didn't play. It's like saying to us, right, we're going to go to Tottenham tomorrow, Sunday. We're going to leave out Odegaard and Rice. Okay, that's happening. But I'll tell you, on top of that, we'll leave out Saka and we'll leave out Saliba as well, and then just going and win easily. And that's what they did against Chelsea. And you think, wow, we couldn't beat Wolves, or didn't feel that we could beat Wolves without our top players, and they weren't probably properly cooked, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that was a big sign for me straight away. Pep 1-0 to Pep, and it's going to be tough. You've got to be nigh on perfect. Like people go to me, Arsenal had a fantastic run last season. They dropped 5 points on it. Yeah, they dropped 2. It was
crazy.
It's crazy. And that was another month before that. If you want to go back to their last defeat, was it Newcastle in December? Well, we lost to West Ham, we lost to Fulham. And then, so in all of it, since they dropped 2 points, we dropped probably 10. And that still wasn't enough, So it's tough. But, that's what you're dealing with now. And you've got to go, you can't, what can I say? You can't afford to drop points at home. And I think that's what let us down last season. And our home form is not as good as our away form. That's why I feel a little bit more confident going away from home at a minute, because I think there's more of an emphasis on us defending, and where at home we're a little bit open at times. We're trying to get that goal, so it's a difficult one. So listen, I think it's going to be tough. If you're going to win the league, without being disrespectful to you guys, we've got to go there and win. We've got to go there and beat them.
I mean, even at this stage of the season, you opened up with obviously again, win against Wolves, the win against Aston Villa, which I thought was quite impressive on the day. I know, again, you could argue you had their chances, and the 1-1 draw against Brighton at home. I mean, does that make does that make going to Spurs a must-win at this stage of the season for Arsenal if you want to be in the title race? Because you've got City coming up after, of course, Spurs. It's not going to be an easy one for you to come. Sandwich in with the Champions League as well.
Yeah, they've got 3 games at home. We've got 3 away at this sort of time, and they've got an extra day at the end of it. When we play Spurs away and they play Brentford at home, I know what run I'd rather have, but that is what it is. You can't pick your fixtures and all that. The trouble is, if we'd have beaten Brighton, I suppose you could say, yeah, draw at Tottenham's a good result, and then as long as you don't lose at City. But I'll say it before. It's like saying, I'll tell you what, I'll have a race with Usain Bolt and give him 20-yard start. Well, he's going to beat me if we're level. You know what I mean? So what am I going to do? Giving him a 20-yard start. So you can't be giving them too many points. Now, if we don't get the result against you guys, we know by Sunday what's going to go on. But I could bet my house on it that they're going to beat Brentford. So you could find yourselves 5 points off of them already before you play Spurs. You know what I mean? And if you lose to Spurs and then you got to go there next week, it's 8 points.
Yep.
If you don't, so it's going to be tough. So, I don't think a draw would be disastrous if then we draw with City. You know what I mean? Or we beat City, but we can't afford to lose this game on and ideally after dropping points against Brighton, with the way that they're playing and everything like that, I kind of think that we've got to win this game. And it's as we're saying, it's not the easiest place to come to. It ain't. I know, I know a lot of our Spurs mates and family and all that are, you're bound to do this and bound to do that, but it's not an easy place to play, and but somehow we've got to try and win it, and listen. Tottenham, I think, are in a position where they'll be looking at is a draw or defeat good for you guys after the start that you've had. So I think there's pressure for both teams for different reasons.
It's interesting you brought up, Lee. I mean, coming down to you, George, I think if you asked any Spurs fan maybe 2.5 weeks ago, I think that maybe the common consensus might have been, we take a point against Arsenal. I think there is the respect there. Look, we can see what Arsenal are doing in the Premier League. Listen, can't get away from the fact they are where they are the last couple of years because they have been consistent in terms of their results and performances. And I think with Spurs at the moment, we know we're going through this transitional rebuild under Ange Postecoglou. Some more than others are fully invested to that rebuild, I think it's fair to say. Given the injuries that Arsenal have had over the last couple of weeks, George, I'd love to know your mindset going into this one when you think about Spurs' starts of the season, where, look, we've had a win, a draw, a loss. It's been a real figure of inconsistency throughout August. We dominated the games against Leicester and Newcastle before the break, only turned up with, just the 1 point. We did, obviously, in between that, thrash Everton, which, to be fair, given Everton's plight at the moment, some would say that was a given. It does feel, George, I don't know if you agree, that a win against Arsenal would almost kickstart Spurs' season into life. Would that be fair, George?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, because at the end of the day, a win against Arsenal is huge, no matter what, for just confidence anyway. But again, not to make too many comparisons, but looking at last year in those first 10 games, that was Ange's first season or first 10 games, and we looked unbelievable. And we went to Arsenal and we looked like we could take on any team, and they had already been challenging and fighting City at that point. So I think a win it's always going to be a massive confidence. But what I think is what I want to see for the whole season is more consistency, because we didn't have that. We obviously, like I said just now, the first 10 games were amazing, but we lost our heads and then we just couldn't get the results were just completely up and down throughout. Whereas, and that was with the performances as well. Whereas, even though those results in these first 3 games have been up and down, I think the performances have been really good. We've just not finished the millions of chances we've created in each game, which, look, I think that partly comes down to the fact that we haven't really had a full game where we've had the first full 11 that Ange will want to have out there. So if Van der Ven and Solanke are back, then this is going to be the first real proper test to see, all right, we've played really well the first 3 games. Can we keep it going? Can we keep the consistency? And now that the full team's there's no excuses. You've got to finish the chances that we're going to be creating. And I think that if that then happens and we do win, that should hopefully snowball effect and carry on to the next game, and going forward should set up season well. But yeah, I want to see some more consistency throughout the season.
I mean, Bill, it's fair to say there has been some murmurings on social media. I wouldn't be Spurs fans if there wasn't some murmurings about maybe a little bit of discontent in terms of maybe the start to the season. I don't think in terms of nature of performances, because I think everyone can definitely see, I think, a clear progression on the back of last season, where I think if you look at the second half of last season in terms of performances and you compare them to the first 3 on this season, I have definitely seen a progression. There's no doubt about it. Am I concerned about familiar traits that we haven't really seemed to address and get out of our game? That's still a concern for me. And I think what this next few weeks are going to show me is whether we are learning the lessons that maybe we didn't really learn on the second part of last season. How do you view the game for you, Bill, in terms of the injuries that we've discussed already, the form of the 2 sides, and maybe that lack of cutting edge? Because Spurs' downfall so far, they've enjoyed a league high of 68.5 possession on average, but they've failed to really convert any of those missing chances in the final third. And the wastefulness of us, Bill, in that final third can't get away from, can it?
Yeah, and I think, firstly, I don't think it would be Spurs' Twitter if we weren't losing our absolute minds 3 games into the season. So that's always good to know that we're still the same. But I think the biggest thing for me is going to be actually, rather than offensive, when we're playing against Arsenal, who are pretty much undoubtedly the best defence in the league. I can't remember how many goals they conceded last season, but it was ridiculously few amount, including chances they conceded as well, even lower, I think. When you compare it to the rest of the teams in the league. What I don't want to see is that same mistake that we made against Newcastle, where we're getting cut open by one pass, goes straight through our midfield, and someone like Saka's running through one-on-one. I want to see that there you go, exactly that, as that picture shows. And I think
I've got to say, I love how you have that ready. That is unbelievable.
There's 2 things on a Spurs podcast that comes up at the moment: the high line and Andrew's tactics. They're going to happen. They're going to be talked about.
And I think it's going to be when we're talking about us going forward tomorrow. We're up on Sunday. We're up against the best defense in the league, so it's not going to be the same kind of. We're not going to have that same kind of domination that we had against Newcastle. We're not going to have that same domination that we had against Everton. And we just got to hope that we can take some of those chances. But the 2 things I'll be looking for on Sunday is to see if we've improved. Is that high line effective against a much better attacking outfit than Newcastle? And are we able to make some kind of contribution defensively against set pieces? Because we know how strong Arsenal are at set pieces. Again, arguably the best set piece team in the league against one of the worst defending set pieces team in the league from last season. We haven't conceded a goal from set pieces yet this season. Touch every bit of wood that I've got in my house. But I just want to see us improve in those areas, to be honest, because it's a very different test to the games we've had so far this season.
Lee, I don't need to tell anybody this. You know this, mate, and you tell us this every time you come on. Your brother's a Spurs fan. You're surrounded by us. The nephews are Spurs fans. They're around, I presume, the other week. Probably bless you for your birthday. I've got no doubt they're around you. Were they there for the birthday?
They were. I was watching the Newcastle game with them, So so that was entertaining.
Little Kane there, was he?
No, little Kane weren't here. He wasn't here. But I had my mum's boyfriend who's Spurs. He was watching it, and it's a really weird thing. Is that I'm sitting there, it's 1-0 when he come round. I was thinking Newcastle were winning 1-0. So when he come round, I'm not interested really, but put it on, sort of thing. Oh yeah, all right, go on then. and they equalised, and he was cheering in my house, cheering and I thought, I can't watch no more of this because it looked like Newcastle were going to win. And I said, I'm going to go carry on with the boat. You end up winning this game. He went, you watch, we'll lose this 2-1. I said, no way you're going to lose this 2-1. I said, there's only one winner. And he said, that is us all over at the moment, And love and behold, the ball went over the top as you just shown, and he ended up losing 2-1. He said, hey, I told you so. And I'll be really honest, he never deserved it. It looked like there was only one winner in that game. So, listen, I got it with the Hulks, but I don't know if my Spurs family and all that, they're very, no, even though you've got players out, you'll still beat us. I don't know if they're just putting it out there just so, you know what I mean, a false sense of security. I don't know, I think, if I be really honest, I don't think Arsenal have been in great form this season. I don't think we played really that well against Wolves, and probably our best performance was against Brighton first half, and after that, obviously the sending off and Villa, we got a little bit lucky. I know we took our chances and all that, but they had a couple of good chances and a wonder save from Raya. So where I've looked at Tottenham, and realistically, you should be on 9 points really. As far as performances are concerned, I know people who go, oh, well, you've got to defend better. Yeah, you've got to defend better and maybe take your chances. But listen, everybody misses chances in football. I see Haaland put one over the bar from 6 yards at West Ham. All right, and he takes his next 3 or 4. That's how it is. But you will miss chances. So I don't think, Spurs are, I would say Arsenal in better form because of where they are in the league. Sometimes results do lie a little bit, but you've got to get yourself over the line. And, the one I think you'd be kicking yourself, if I was a Spurs fan, I'd be kicking yourself. I know, Newcastle, but Newcastle, any team can lose to Newcastle. Is that Leicester one? It should have been 4. I actually turned it off at 1-0. I said, this is going to be 4 or 5. They're going to be top of the league at the end of the night here on goal difference. And then, it went 1-1. And then you think, God, really? All right, I'll watch it now. And, at the end of the day, you could have lost that game from a game which you should have won 5-0. That's the problem that you got at Tottenham at this moment in time. But, and I think you're right, consistency is it. What's the difference between Arsenal 2 seasons ago? It is consistency. There were times, I was sort of speaking to Bill earlier on today, and I said I was coming on here, and he said, with Spurs, you don't know what you're going to get. You might get a performance where they're going to blow Arsenal away, and then they might lose to Brentford a week later, or Man United or whatever, And that was what we was like a couple of years ago. But now you feel like we've got that thing where we were confident. Even though we've got a few players out on Sunday, I still feel confident that we won't lose the game. I'm not saying we're going to win it, but I still think we've got a good solid defence. We're not going to do things stupidly like Gunner, which we did a couple of years ago. Do you remember we come to your place 2 years ago? Was it now 3 years ago? We only needed a draw and we're going gun-o. And I'm thinking, why are we doing that?
That night under Conte.
Just drop deep and they've got to get the, So I do think there's a little bit there. I think tactically Tottenham could be a little bit better, but that's the way he plays, guys. You know what I mean? Whether you like it or you don't, you seem like Spurs fans that I know are enjoying going over there at the moment more than they were a couple of years ago. You knew what you was going to get with Tottenham then, like a stale 1-0 win or, blah, blah, blah. But now you don't know what you're going to get, but it is bloody entertaining. But you've got to think that consistency will have to come. Tactics will have to come. Or you look at it as a Spurs fan and whatever, and you go, right, he's put us in a good position here. We have to get someone that's going to take us to that bit further. I don't know. I wouldn't do that if I was Tottenham. Listen, if I had my way, Arteta would have been sacked 2-3 years ago. So.
Oh, we know.
Yeah. I'll be honest. You know what I mean? I won't. And I will say this. I'm never afraid to admitting it neither. Tottenham were a better team than us at the time. Tottenham were doing better than us, and that put more pressure on me. That put more. I can't have that. You know what I mean? So now that Arsenal are the better side, a little bit of that pressure's gone off. I I don't know if it is with you guys because Arsenal are the better team now that you feel like a little bit more pressure of that. I don't know, but I certainly did when we was playing that. Like, you know, look, I said earlier on that I know it sounds we went and got Arteta with no experience. I know it didn't work out, and you went and got Mourinho, you know, proper coach, proper everything. I know it didn't work, but it seemed to me like, oh, you know, they've got the ambition we haven't, like, you know what I mean? And we was getting turned over, and you start thinking like, you know, like, oh, what, Tottenham shouldn't be, why are they better than us? And so there's pressure gets built up through that, like, you know. Now in my mind, and I think with the league table, I think that Arsenal are better. That relief from pressure's gone. I don't know if it builds up with you guys as well, because we are, and you think like, well, we should be doing this and we should be doing that. But it definitely does add a bit of pressure when your rivals are doing what they're doing. And it definitely was with Tottenham a couple of years ago. And but at the end of the day, you know, that's how it is. And I think that you know, as I say, Arteta wasn't my, well, I won't say it was my first choice, but now, you know, I'm delighted that he signed a contract. Why? Because we're winning games of football, guys. You know what I mean? Like, and there were times when I was going to Liverpool, going to Manchester City, Chelsea, thinking, oh God, if I take a 1-0 or 2-0 defeat now, you know what I mean? And coming out 4 or 5-0 down, you know, going to Spurs and getting stuffed. That don't happen very often, but you know, that did once when it was 3-0, and the other time in Pochettino's last season at White Hart Lane, I think we lost 2-0, but you know,
it was the manner. It was the manner of it. It was the manner of the performance.
Yeah, we was totally dominated from the first minute to the last, and I've never walked out of Tottenham thinking, thank God it was only 2. You know what I mean? But that's where we was at that stage, you know. So we've gone beyond that now. So I thank Mikel Arteta for doing that. So it's that's how it is. So and I do, you know, listen, we might get beat on Sunday. I don't know, but I feel confident that we won't go there and lose, and that's what's been instilled in me. That's what the players that we've got now, and I know that if we can defend properly, we're in with a chance.
You know, Lee, you brought up the fact there that you had a wobble during the period of Arteta being as manager. And look, many can see, for those that are watching the show, that kind of steady progression from 8th to 8th to 5th to 2nd to 2nd. I mean, there's no doubt about it that sticking with the plan has got Arsenal at a point where they are now consistently in a title race. And again, speaking now to somebody that has gone through that experience of a transitional period over a manager, a rebuild, a reset, Spurs are firmly in that at the moment. And I think it's fair to say there is some Postecoglou believers and there is some Postecoglou doubters. And I know, look, again, not for the choice of your own, but your brother being a Spurs fan, you're in and around Spurs in your life as well. From what you see from the outside looking at the Tottenham right now, do you think they've got the right man in place that is going to genuinely take Spurs to a point where they can be up there with Arsenal challenging for the league? Be honest, what do you think looking at Spurs under Ange Postecoglou for you? Can that high line that we touched upon earlier that George spoke about, that the image here shows you, with a team that very much sits, you know, in terms of the defenders on the halfway line at times, can that work? Can Ange Postecoglou's system work in the Premier League for you?
No, not against the big teams. I think the big teams will expose you. If you play that high line against Arsenal, like it did in the, we weren't even playing that well about it. You're letting Saka go 1-on-1. No one in the league does it. No one in the league does it. You know, we go to Man City, they put someone on him all the time and double up on him and all that. Like, that's Man City. And you've got Tottenham. At the end of the day, I think it was Ben Davies was playing there, like, you know, and you're saying to him, get forward as much as you can. Like, you know that he can't get there and get back. Just defend. Like, you know, when you played like the Man City, I think even against Man City in that game there, was because we, you know, as an Arsenal fan, I did have a little bit of an interest in that game, like, you know, so I watched it. Like, you know, you did drop off a little bit in that game, and certainly had a lot better play. So I think that you would have to do that. The problem with Ange, in my opinion, and I'll speak to my brother about it and everything like that. That game against Chelsea, he come out 2-0. This is the way it is, mate. This is how we play, mate, and all that, like, and realistically, it's suicidal, like, you know, when you're playing in top teams. Now, at the end of the day, the game against Chelsea, you could sit back 10 men behind or 9 men behind the ball as it was and still get beat at the end of it. I get it that he went for it, But I think he could have come out that day and said, you know what, we went for it, it didn't work, we move on, we look at it, address it again another time. But now he's got, I've got to have this eyeliner all the time. You don't have to have it all the time, guys. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you're on top against Newcastle away. If you just be patient and just let the game go, you get another chance and you win the game. But you play this gun-ho football and you know, it's great to watch and all that, like, but you know, in Europe, you're going to come up against teams that are tactically very, very good and all that, and they'll look at all this sort of stuff. And the thing is with football now, whether you like it or you're not, it's like a chess game, isn't it, where everybody's analysing everything and all that, like. So Arsenal will be looking at all the weaknesses that Tottenham do, and Tottenham are doing the same with Arsenal, and it's out. So you get this game of chess a little bit, and sometimes if you know, I don't know, if you run out of position and all that, like, they can exploit it very, very quickly, like, you know. So, listen, I think that, you know, I do laugh at the Spurs fans because I've been there. You know, you've got half a few, like, if you get two Spurs fans in there, one a big Ange in, one a big Ange out. Not in a bad way, but, you know what I mean? I don't know if he's the right guy for us and all that, like. But listen, you know, I can only speak in advice, you know what I mean? There's many a times I would have, you know, sacked Arteta, many a times, you know what I mean? But, you know, there was a lot of pain, a lot of games to go to get to where we've got. Now, I think Spurs are a better run club than, say, someone like Man United. Man United keep shopping and changing, and, you know, I don't think they're nowhere near where they should be and whatever, like, you know. So I don't think you should follow the Arsenal route. I don't think you should follow the Man United route. I think you've got to follow the Spurs route, whatever.
Oh,
you know,
you want to do that?
He's put him in charge, and you've got to go with it, like, you know.
Yeah.
I think you have to, you know, I mean, believe in it to a certain degree. I didn't at times with Arteta. I do now. I'm fully fledged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know what? It's interesting to say that, Lee. I mean, Bill, come over to you, and I'll walk up to George. Bill, you are probably, I know, one of the Postecoglou believers out there. I know you adore the man, you love the man. I know you've read his books, and I've listened to different podcasts where you've been on. Bill, this is quite, I don't want to over-egg this, but this is, I think, a real test of Ange now in these next kind of few weeks to come. We've got North London Derby, of course, on the Sunday. We've got, for me, which is, I know people might laugh and say this, is for me just as important as that is the game against Coventry in the League Cup. I'm a cup man. I've said it so many times for me. I need to see Spurs win a bloody trophy, and I rate the importance of the Coventry game as high as the Arsenal game, which might sound absolutely crazy to some fans out there, but for a club that has not won a trophy in over a decade, that's how big I view the next couple of weeks to come and Europe in between. Where are you, Bill, in terms of Postecoglou at the moment? There are doubts from outside looking in. Is he still firmly the right man, and can he lead us through this interesting period of fixtures, which might define where we are under Ange? Not to go overboard on that.
Oh yeah, man! I'm a massive fan, as you say. I absolutely adore the guy. I'm a huge fan of the way that he plays. You know, I've seen some. You know, after the last few years that we've had, I've seen some terribly defensive football, and the way that I like to watch football is relentless attacking football, and that's what we do under Postecoglou when it's going well. I completely agree with you about the cup game, mate, because when we were at this time last season, everything was going really, really well. The one mistake he made was that Fulham game, when he changed the side and we lost to Fulham when we should have beat them. I know we lost on penalties, but still, you know, we should have won that game. We didn't have a cup run as a result. Then we ended up getting Man City in the FA Cup, which is obviously a different, you know, obviously it's a different kind of kettle of fish playing against Man City, but we didn't have a single cup run last season. And we're a cup team, and I completely agree. And I also have one eye on that first Europa League fixtures that are coming up as well, because I think that's our best chance of a trophy this season, because Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool aren't in it. So that makes it a lot easier as well. But I think the thing for me, mate, is I like the way that we play football under him, but there's a couple of deficiencies that I want to see addressed. And one of them is that, you know, making the most out of the high line, not being suicidal with it, as Lee mentioned. And the other one is the cup, as you say. So let's hope those two things are addressed this year. But my big thing is, right, so I've definitely seen enough from him that we have to stick with him. We can't keep being in this cycle of chopping and changes, managers. Oh, you know, every time something goes wrong, sack him, get another one in, sack him, get another manager. It's got us we've had 5 years of absolutely no progression since Pochettino left. And for me, let's just stick with it for a few years. Exactly, you know, Arsenal, they finished 8th in the first two seasons under Arteta. If that was us, I think our fan base would have got him, you know, the same. He'd be sacked. And if that was Daniel Levy would have sacked him on the first time he finished 8th. So I want to stick with this, see where it goes. If it doesn't work out in a few years, we can say, look, at least we gave it everything that we tried. We back this man financially a bit more now than we used to. So let's back him as fans and see where it takes us. Because if we don't, keep chopping and changing. It's not going to get us anywhere. We're building something now, so let's see it through for once.
Yeah, I mean, George, coming over to you. I don't want to over egg this. I think because the match going fans that go to Spurs week in, week out, from what I gauge going there, there's still very much a firm belief that Ange Postecoglou is the right man for the club. I think you get that from match going fans. But what I will say is that on social media, which again, social media is a different barometer as a whole, it does feel that there is definitely a split amongst some fans online as to whether he is the right man. Again, it's a dangerous barometer to go with, but just to kind of give an indication of Spurs' results, when you go back to that Chelsea game, which now was a long time ago, that 4-1 defeat that Lee brought up, Spurs have won 13 league games out of the last 31. 10 of those wins comes against tied below 10th in the table. We've won 3 times away from home in the last 15 games. And we've just kept 4 clean sheets from the last 32. Look, you can change stats around in terms of where you want to go to and from in terms of the run that we've been on. But I think it's fair to say that the stats that I'm reading out don't paint the most positive picture when it comes to Ange's form at the moment with Spurs. Is that a cause of concern for you, or is that part of the rebuild and the adjustment of going via a transition that maybe Lee was talking about there for him under Arteta?
I think it's the latter. I think, like, at the end of the day, whenever you change manager, and realistically, our whole squad needed changing, and we finally addressed it in terms of outgoings this summer, which it feels like every year it's always the same story. We're always saying we still haven't got rid of the dead wood, blah, blah, blah. We've finally done that this year. We're finally building in his image. And you just got to look back to the Poch year. And I think Lee hit on pretty early on about the comparison between Arsenal and Tottenham. I think we sort of exaggerate how bad we say things are because we're seeing how good or how well Arsenal are doing.
That's so true.
And if you think back to the beginning of the Poch era, he was given a load of time. He was given the team that he inherited was unbelievably poor in comparison to what it ended up being. And any rebuild is going to take time to build in that consistency and do well. It's gonna the losses are going to happen, especially because with this style under Ange, we're building a young team. We saw that at the beginning of Arsenal, Arteta's reign. It was all young players. They didn't have the experience to see out a lot of matches, which we saw a lot of that last year from our team. We're going to see it again this year. We're definitely nowhere near the finished article. And I think for me, it's about like having the identity, which we clearly have now. We're back to being this attacking team that we claim we have always been. We sort of went really, really stray with it under Conte, Mourinho, and Nuno. We sort of gone back to that identity. You can clearly see an improvement in terms of like the pattern of play throughout the whole of our season, even the start of this season.
Definitely this season.
So
definitely.
you can see that clearly the performances are improving. Yes, the results are not there. They're not going to be there for the whole of this season. But what I want to see is a big improvement on the consistency to last year. And the guy's going to need time for it. It's been just over 1 year. Bearing in mind when we sold Harry Kane, like context is so key. We sold Harry Kane. Every professional pundit, ex-player, all said that we're going to be near relegation without him. We ended up just about missing Champions League because of a real poor run of form towards the end of last season. We had loads of players away on international duty with AFCON and Son away with Korea. We had loads of injuries to suspensions. Like where we ended up compared to what the team was last year is truly actually incredible in my opinion. Like, okay, you could say we should have got Champions League ahead of Villa, but we shouldn't have been anywhere near fifth if you read all of that out at the beginning. So, it's all about gaining that consistency in the performances and then turning those into the results. But we just need a bit of patience. And I think, in my opinion, we're just comparing too much to Arsenal, seeing how well they're doing and thinking, well, why aren't we there? Because we were ahead of them 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. I think that's the main problem. It's the thief of joy.
Yeah, I mean, Jotley, on that point, how hard is it asking fans that have waited? I know you haven't had to wait this long for a trophy, but when you've waited like for us 20, 25 years to then be told you have to go for another rebuild, it's another reset. How hard is that, do you think, as fans like us to have to stomach that for some? I mean, look, you say you're around family that are Spurs. Is that tricky or is that just sticking to the plan? Because I'd love to know from you when you actually saw for you a point in Arteta's reign where you thought, I can see this coming together. Because like you said in that 5-year period, there were times you thought it wasn't really working out. And probably one of those times might have been after that defeat to Spurs, under Conte, where it was a heavy defeat. In a bizarre way, that game, you look at it, it was almost like it seemed to reignite Arsenal under Arteta from that game onwards. That next season, you pushed on, nearly won the title. Yeah. It's just been a very weird last couple of years. I think if anyone said at that point, Spurs beat Arsenal under Conte, You would never have imagined the direction
No.
those teams were heading. It's crazy, isn't it? Crazy.
And I'm not going to ridicule you by this, like, you know what I mean? But like, I walked out of that stadium that day, and it was horrendous. Everybody having a party, and you know, on the concourse, you could hear it as you walked out. Like, you know what I mean? Like 2 years later, they're having a party because they didn't get into the Champions League. You know what I mean? Like, so it's an amazing turnaround when you think of it like that. Like, you know, I don't think it was a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing for Spurs, you know, not being in the Champions League this season, because you know what, when you're having a rebuild, you don't want to have games where you can't. How can I say it? You have games. I don't know. You got in your first game in the Europa League.
Carabao at home.
There you go. So what can you do in that game? What can you do in that game? You can play some squad players, some young players in that, and get them built up into games. Yep. But if you was playing Inter Milan at home, you can't do that. No. So I think that it was a good thing for Arsenal that we could rebuild and rest certain players for those Thursday games. So we wouldn't play a couple of the, I don't know, bigger players that play. We might rest Saka, we might rest so and so, and then like you'd get other players getting minutes and things like that, and just build it up. Like, you know, it ain't the end of the world. All this thing about Champions League football, even now, you know, with the extra games and all that, like it ain't for the fans. If you're being really honest, you know what I mean. Like it's for the club and the players.
Well, isn't that what Wenger got sacked for? Because you're constantly just getting top four and not pushing on as well. So
yeah, you can say that as well. Like, you know, like we was, and I think it is now sort of seen as a trophy. Like, you know, I'll get into the top four. But I'll tell you what, as a fan, you'll have better. I bet you know you've got a better trip. You've got Rangers away. That's a better trip than any of what we've got. You know what I mean? Like, from a fan's point of view, I'm not saying for the players, but for a fan, I'll tell you what, I know a few of my mates have already, we're jumping up to Edinburgh, we're doing this and we're doing that. They're all excited. Oh, where are you going this way? I'm going Italy, which is much more glamorous. But at the end of the day, I'm telling you now, as a fan, I'd rather be going Rangers. So, you know, like it's all money for the club and all that. Like, but from a fan's point of view, you know, you've got a better chance of winning the Europa League than the other cups. As you know, as you said, like, you know, Manchester City are not in that cup competition. Every competition that Arsenal are in at the moment, so are City, and they're favourites for everything, like, you know. So it's difficult. So listen, I get all the stuff and all that. Listen, I've made money on being mad and going mad about things and all that, like, you know what I mean. Go back and see what I've had meltdowns, you know what I mean, like, because we've lost at home to Burnley. You know what I mean? Like, come on, we've lost at home to Burnley. Like, get rid of him. And then the next week we've lost to Everton at home 3-0. You know, we went 8 games, didn't win a game. We beat Man United away 1-0 and then lost the next 8 games. You know what I mean? And in that time, Tottenham are winning games. And the one thing that I will say is, and a couple of my mates all that, don't worry about what they're doing. You know what I mean? Why are you getting mad because of them? You know what I mean? Like, but it does, you know, because there's a rivalry. So I get that, you know. I laugh at it now when I see Spurs fans, man, because of Arsenal and all that. Like, well, you know, there's nothing you can do about Arsenal. You can't do it. You can on 2 times a season. You can do something about Arsenal, but the other times you can't. You know what I mean? Like next week against Arsenal, Man City, you can only cheer on Man City. You can't do nothing about it. Like, you know, it's the same when you go up to Man United. Like, you know what I mean? I'll be cheering on Man United. I can't do nothing about it. So but it gets in your head, guys. It does. There's no 2 ways about it. Like, you know, we hate each other. Let's be honest. We hate each other because you've been brought up to hate each other. And that's the way it is. So we're never going to get on. You know what I mean? Like, there's never going to be a peace thing between Arsenal and Spurs. And bloody, I don't want it to be like it's the rivalry which you've got. And that's why it makes it such a great derby. And that's why I'm all nervous about Sunday. So you just got to go on and doing it. And listen, Spurs fans are going to have meltdowns about Ange. They're going to go like, get rid of him and all that. Like, it's up to the board at the end of the day.
Can you understand any Spurs fans that feel Ange is not the right man at the moment?
Can
you
understand?
Of course. You can. And do you think he's under massive pressure if he doesn't get a result against Arsenal? I'm just intrigued from your side.
Listen, he's not under no pressure at this moment in time. I think if he was to lose to Arsenal, say if he lost to Arsenal, right, 2-0, right, please, 2-0, and it's 2 balls over the top, right? 2 balls over the top, Saka going like, like 1-on-1, bang, goal, and Havertz does the same. You don't beat Brentford, then you go and lose to Man United. I think then there's the international break after that. There will be pressure on him, because
Don't forget Coventry in the cup.
Well,
That's
yeah,
big.
well,
That's
you know,
a
I mean,
big
if you,
game.
yeah,
Big
like,
game.
right, if
That's
you
a
lose
big
to
game.
Coventry you lose to Coventry in the cup. Well, you know what I mean, like that don't bear thinking about from a Spurs point of view. You know what I mean? So, but it's so say if that did happen, like, you know what I mean, the back end of last season's results. I said this earlier on. Straight away you've gone up there and said 13 defeats. Or whatever it was. Is it 13, whatever? Like, you ain't turning around and going, oh, no, it's only 12 because with one of them we wanted to lose. You know what I mean? Like, it's in there, in the record books, defeat. Now, on top of everything else, of course there's going to be pressure on there. Like, you know what I mean? Arsenal, under Mikel, going back, and I still say he would have got the sack. Like, we played Chelsea on Boxing Day. If we would have lost to Chelsea, we ended up beating them 4-1. Smith Rowe got a couple of goals. If we'd have lost that game, we'd have gone into the bottom 3. Now, Tottenham are nowhere near that. Nowhere near that, like, you know what I mean, at the end of the day. So, for us, it was a living bloody nightmare for a long while. And I never see us getting out of it. You know what I mean? If you'd have said to me that day on Boxing Day, oh, don't worry about it, Lee, in 3 years' time, you'll be this and that. And look, you're mad. So you don't know what's going to happen in football. We don't know what's going to happen Sunday. We're always sitting here. You can only predict. You can only predict what's going to happen against Coventry and Brentford, and that my philosophy is that you'll definitely beat Coventry. I don't got no worries about that. But you'll be nervous before that game because that's what football does.
Terrified.
Yeah, but
terrified on Sunday as well.
At the end of the day, I'll ask you now, if you said to like, lose to Arsenal, but you beat Coventry and go on and win the Carabao Cup, you'll take that, surely. You know what I mean? Like,
I personally would. Yeah, I would personally, but I don't know.
I'll be really honest.
Yeah.
If you said to me, Tottenham will beat you home and away this season, but you'll win the league, all right. I'll take a day of 2 days of pain, and whatever, and all the people at the end of it win the league. It is right. And I'm not saying you shouldn't worry about Spurs, but I do, and I always do. Like, he gets they're getting good again, they're getting this and that. Like, my mate is a great. Don't worry. He always says it. Spurs are Spurs. This will happen. Don't worry about it. Oh, I can't handle it. They're doing well. But that's the way it is, And the end of it, and it is true. Spurs, and I was talking about this earlier on. How good would Spurs be? Forget about Ange and all that. How good would Spurs be now if they had Harry Kane?
Well, listen, up front.
You're all relying on Solanke now, like, he's nowhere near in the class of Harry Kane.
This is the one thing we miss about you. We have not got any more Harry. He's done it again, that Harry Kane.
Bayern Munich's Harry Kane, congratulations on your 100 caps, well deserved, and 2 great goals in the midweek. Fantastic. I don't hate Harry Kane now as much as
I bet you don't.
No, it's gone. Why? Because he's Bayern Munich's Harry Kane. You know what I mean? Like, it's mad, but that's what it does to you. You know what I mean? Like, I've told you a story about Teddy Sheringham. Like, I was on holiday with Teddy Sheringham. I never celebrated his goals. So so I told him. So he came up to me and he goes to me, "Why don't you celebrate Harry Kane's goals? You're ridiculous, you are." So I went to him, "Well, I didn't celebrate your goals." And he went, "You know why that is?" I said, "Oh, what's that?" He goes, "You're a CUNT." And he actually said it, like, you know what I mean? So, but like, that's how it is, And I'll tell you what, he's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
Rivals aside, I ended up having a really good time with him, like, you know what I mean? And you think, like, I shouldn't be like that, really.
I know. The thing is, it's like in families, unfortunately, we're surrounded by both sets of fan bases. We can't help it. It's the way it is.
You are the worst fan base, by the way. You are.
You're joking. This lot.
Whoa.
That's outrageous.
Well,
that's
I'll tell you why.
It's outrageous.
Look, no one likes you. Chelsea don't like you. Like, I mean, West Ham don't like you. You know what I mean? Like, I even bumped into a Millwall fan the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Prefers Arsenal to Tottenham. Why is
Mill don't like anyone.
Why is that? Like, you know what I mean?
I don't know. With this, it's hard. I think the thing with Spurs fans is because we're so desperate for success, and you was on it in those first 10 games of last season, that when we see a glimmer that we look like we're getting back to that, we just can't help but get excited. And I don't know whether, Bill, coming over to you, that is just the DNA of us as Spurs fans, that first 10 games of last season, you know, we were seeing a glimmer of not only just, you know, attacking football, but progression so quickly in terms of results that no one really ever saw. I don't think that honeymoon coming under Ange. I think the weird thing is that if you reverse last season and you would have had a poor start, like the back end of last season, you had the good spell that we had at the start, I think there would have been a different mood maybe from a lot of fans around where they are at the moment. But you know what, in terms of the game being won and lost, and Lee brought it up about the high line and saying how for him that's not sustainable under Ange. Do you think Bill will see a change in that at the weekend? I think, to be fair, to give Spurs their dues under Ange, I think we have seen progression in terms of the set pieces, and that's down to obviously the work Nick Montgomery is doing on the training ground. They seem to be going for more of a hybrid setup now as opposed to last year going for man marking. How confident are you that we would have learned from last season from set pieces, and also maybe adopt more of a less of a higher line, which Lee will want when you consider the fact we're going to have... I think Sterling will probably make his debut against Spurs. I don't care what anyone says. I think Sterling on his day is still a really good player. I know some fans of Arsenal won't be disappointed by his signing, but I think on his day he can be a very good player. You've got the likes of Martinelli, you've got Saka in there. That's again a forward line that last season. In terms of Martinelli and Saka, caused Spurs a lot of problems last season. Do you expect that to change, Bill, for this one? Or where have you learned the lessons?
No, I don't expect it to change, to be honest, mate. I think the set pieces might be improved. I think it'll be a big difference if Solanke plays. But in terms of the high line, as Lee said at the beginning, when we started talking about the Chelsea game, it's not going to happen. That's going to be part of Ange's DNA always in every side that he plays. He's never going to change it. So we've got to hope that we use it effectively, because, you know, certain managers have certain things. You know, it's a bit like asking Arteta to stand in his technical area. It's never going to happen, mate. It's just never going to happen. Certain managers are wired different ways, aren't they? And yeah, I can almost guarantee you on Sunday we're going to see, probably from the centre, kick off, we're going to see Romero standing on the halfway line. He's not going to move from there for the whole game. So the high line's going to be there whether we like it or not, and we just have to hope that it's effective, I think, mate.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, George, when you hear this, we're not going to adjust. We're not going to change.
No.
He has got one way of playing. Do you think, George, it can be effective? Can it be done for you? Do you fear that going into this game on the back of last season? Or do you look at the fact of Arsenal's injury concerns and think, if we can get at that midfield, which, to be fair, I would imagine we'll come on to do in a second, will probably be Jorginho and Partey in there. Does that give you a lot more confidence? Because I think the thing with, I've got to say, Odegaard not being there, you look at the effect he has on this Arsenal side. With him, 66.4 win percentage. Without him, 52.6. It does feel like he's very much a key player to that Arsenal midfield. With the tactics Spurs want to deploy and how they're likely to play, do you think that can be successful against this Arsenal side, George?
To be honest, I think it can be successful by sticking to the plan. Like, trying to give an example of like the big dogs, your Peps, your Klopps, like they don't waver from how they play. Peps is obviously quite attacking, and it's. I know Ange's scene's a lot more gun ho in comparison to a lot of these other guys, so maybe there might have to be some adjustments down the line. But it's more about the principles. These top managers stick by it no matter what, and they just drill it into you and train your team until you perfect that. And I think the only way it can really be super effective for us is if we are finishing these 20 chances we're creating per game. It's almost like the old Liverpool way. The beginning on the clock, they wanted to beat everyone 5-4. It kind of feels like that at the moment, where we're the super attacking highline team, but if we're not finishing these chances, then it's not going to work. So I think we're just trying to perfect an area at a time. And right now, if we're not finishing the chances, it won't be effective. But if we do, then we could easily be 3-0 up in the first half like they were last year. So I think it all depends. And onto the point about Odegaard, obviously he's a key player, but come on, we've had this in so many previous games against Arsenal, where you'd be happy that Partey was starting the game a couple of years ago, and then all of a sudden he'll go and score against us. Like these sort of things always happen. Like you can guarantee Jorginho is going to be scoring against us at the weekend now because he's starting, but people are celebrating he's ahead of Rice. So yeah, you got to take these injuries with a pinch of salt. They know how they play, and I think a team that's always dangerous is a one that can get a result even when they're not playing well. And I agree with what Lee was saying earlier. I've not been impressed with how Arsenal have played so far this season, but they've still been grinding out results.
Yeah.
That's what champions do and what big teams do. They grind the results no matter how they've been playing. So that's the scarier part for me, is if they can go into this game with those injuries or missing players and still grind a result, then it's a real problem. For us, we need to use that to advantage and get a step up. But yeah, it's all dependent on our style of play if we can finish these chances. If not, we're always going to concede chances and goals. So
it is a bizarre thing that you feel like with Spurs, you've got to score at least 2 or 3 in a game to win it.
Oh yeah,
because you know that we're susceptible to letting one in, which is bizarre. I mean,
but that's what happened with Liverpool, though. Liverpool did the exact same thing, but then they realised, they saw what the issues were, which was goalkeeper wasn't good enough and centre backs weren't good enough. They splashed all the cash on just those 2 areas in Van Dijk and Alisson, and all of a sudden they became this amazing, formidable defence, but still played the exact same way. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that we need to go and change certain defenders or whatever to improve, but it's one of those ones where we're going to have to assess this throughout the whole season and say, right, we've got the consistency now, but this part of the area is not quite working. Maybe we can upgrade and get this world-class player in that position, and then it will sort of click. Do you see what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
I think we've just got to stick with our principles, and you've got to do that by backing Ange in how he wants to play. Yeah,
because I think we've all made that point, and as Lee said, I don't think we are expecting to change. I mean, the one game you'd say he was slightly more reserved was that Man City game, which, to be fair, 50-50 of 50, there's 50-50 split as whether we wanted to win that game. I mean, I know with Son going through, I mean, Lee, you must have been the biggest Son fan in your life at that moment. Part of me was like, in that stadium, there was go on. Oh, so relieved he's missed it. It was the most bizarre. That was the most bizarre game. And to be fair, I think Ange, in a weird way, that was maybe the one game where we weren't all on the same script as Spurs fans. I think even he was I think he was taken aback by the reaction of Spurs fans on that Man City game. Just a very weird situation to be in, to be fair. Let's talk about that midfield, Lee, for you. Look, it's likely, I would have presumed, that you'll have Partey and Jorginho starting. It's funny because what we're looking at, a year and a half ago, Lee, Partey might well have been in your first 11. Now it was a feeling over the summer. He may have moved on. How do you feel that being your midfield too? It's still not a bad midfield, is it? No. I mean, it's not your number one midfield, but you still confident that can do the job for you on Sunday from your perspective?
Yeah, listen, Partey would be, if I was playing my strongest side, Partey plays in it. You know what I mean? Like, a fit Partey, he's still a very, very good player. Like, the trouble is he ain't been fit, but he's played 5, 6, 7 games now. And once he gets up to, what happens with Partey is he gets up to the level and you think, right, this is unbelievable. And then he gets injured and then he has to work his way back up there. It's frustrating. But if he's on form and that, he would be my first choice player in there anyway. So my first choice midfield will be him, Declan Rice and Odegaard. So we've still got him there. I still say this with Jorginho isn't a bad option in there. And that's when now the one comes is that who you're going to replace Odegaard with. And the one that Odegaard's very, very hard to replace because he is an exceptional player. I don't care what anybody says. I think he's got, he works his socks up for the team. I think that goes unnoticed for a playmaker at times, how hard he does work, chasing down everything like that. And then he's got the skills and can open up teams and everything like that. So it's going to be a big loss. For me, there's talk, I know a lot of Arsenal fans saying bring Havertz back in there. I think Havertz does too good a job for us up top. We've been a much, much better side when Havertz is up top. So for me, it comes down to Nwaneri or Trossard. I like the kid. I do think I watched him in America.
17 years old, Lee?
17 years of age. He's very, very good. But listen, there's 17-year-olds playing in the Euros like this time around. Like, he is good. But I've had a little think about it. Maybe Trossard will be the better option with a bit more experience. Then they'll have Martinelli, Havertz and Saka as the front three.
You don't think he'll be tempted to give Sterling his debut?
Well, I think like Sterling last 20, 25 minutes when, like a tiring player. One thing I did notice last season with Van der Ven, I thought he was very, very good against Spurs, but with 10, 15 minutes of that game was on, running on fumes. He was running to the ground. And if you carry on doing that's another thing, he ain't going to be able to last all the season. So you imagine him getting tired towards the end, especially if he hasn't had a lot of football. Sterling coming on, Jesus coming on, could be keys for us. So I think Jesus being fit is another key for us. So look, listen, that ain't a bad team. You know what I mean? Like our front six is still available. All right, maybe 5 if we put Trossard in there. But you still got on the bench Jesus and Sterling. Or if you play Sterling, you got Martinelli. 20 minutes from the end of fresh Martinelli. So I think that's okay in there, So I still don't get, guys. I know we're going to miss Odegaard and Rice, of course we are, but I still don't think that's a bad midfield. I don't think it's a midfield where you're going, whoa, you know what I mean? Like we ain't gonna, we've only got them, hopefully only miss Rice for one game. We ain't going to get injured in training or anything like that, and he'll be back for Italy and City. So I still think that's a good midfield. It's not ideal, but like as I said earlier on in the show, sometimes you have to get through it, and I still don't think that's a bad team. It's still very, very strong at the back. Goalkeeper has been in good form this season, and if
probably your best player, Lee, would you say?
Yeah, I would say. I actually, they do these things. I'll vote for your best player and all that. I thought, well, I actually give it to him as the best player, because I don't think we've been quite in the right form yet. And I think Declan Rice turned around and said it. He's sort of using the Premier League games to get minutes at the moment because he's only been training a couple of weeks, same as Saka. So, listen, Arsenal's still got a decent midfield there. It's not ideal, but it's still not. I don't think it's weak. I don't look at it here and I think, right, there's a weak player in there. You know what I mean? Like Jorginho is better footballer than what I ever thought he was. Might not have the legs and all that, but guys, last season he played against Man City twice, Liverpool. We won those games. So, drew at City and he played in those games. So he's not a weak link, but I do think Odegaard probably be missed more, for that work rate than, shutting down. He is, very, very good on that. But as I say, look, in that first half, did he contribute that much in that game? No, we're 3-0 up. So, the one, and Declan Rice, of course, is missing on set pieces. He's very, very good for our corners and all that. But as I was reminded earlier on, Saka did put one in for your own goal last season. So you can't. We've been 2 years chasing the title or getting close and all that. We've got a couple of injuries. We've still got a strong squad, as I say, I'm still confident that we can get something from the game. I'm desperate for 3 points, but if we can't win it, we don't lose it. That's my motto at the moment. So we'll go from there. But listen, from you guys, there's a bit of prep. You got a chance to beat Arsenal. You're at home.
Yep.
A few big players missing.
I've got to say,
don't mess it up.
I think on that basis, Bill, I asked you this at the start of the show. When you look at the facts, when you go back 2.5 weeks ago, I think there will be now more of an emphasis on Spurs. That I wouldn't say the word pressure, but this is a real good opportunity to beat an Arsenal side that haven't got their first options in midfield. And then from a Tottenham perspective, if they have the likes of Mickey van der Ven, Dominic Solanke back, I think there will be an onus on Spurs to take the game to Arsenal, which I think we will do. We're at home. Do you, Bill, believe that as well, that there will be that, not pressure, but that more kind of hopeful nature that Spurs are going to attack this game and go for the 3 points?
Yeah, without a doubt, mate, because, this season, no one in the Premier League has had more possession than us. No one's created more chances than us. No one's had more shots than us. So we're going to continue where we left off. And obviously, it's we're up against a completely different style of defence in Arsenal, a much stronger defence we played all season. But I don't expect any of that to change. We'll still try and dominate the ball and go forward. Whether we'll be successful with it, that's what will win and lose us the game. Whether we'll actually be able to convert any of these chances like we didn't against Leicester, we didn't against Newcastle. But I definitely think we'll look to dominate the ball and attack them. Just got to pray that it works, mate, because I'll definitely be praying to every God that I don't believe in at the moment. That's how desperate I am to get to not. You know what? I just don't want to lose this game. I think if we lose the game, we could go into derail season territory. It's crazy to say 4 games into the season, but you know what our fan base are like, mate. So.
This is the Postecoglou believer.
Yeah. It's not me. My belief will be there, but I know what's going to happen if we lose it, mate. So I just pray we come away.
AJ saying, I know AJ was saying that Basuma's out. Is that right? Is he just more?
He went off injured. He went off
injured for Marley. He is going to be subject to a late fitness test, which obviously we'll get an update from Ange on. But I think Spurs do have, to be fair to your midfield options. That I think when you look at last season's midfield on that point, George. I remember Højbjerg starting. I think Ben Davies starting. I mean, to be fair, Spurs, you know what, to use that term, the Harry term, down to the bare bones. You know, we did have missing players last season. And to be fair, I think this fixture does come round better for Spurs than it does for Arsenal. But if you looked at last season's reversal of the fixture, home again, away, Arsenal might have argued it came around better for them because the fact Spurs obviously had a number of players missing. I think James Maddison was out, if I remember. Of course, we had injuries at the time. Do you think, George, you know, Bill touches on there, if we don't get a result, maybe the fearful nature of it? I think for what people are expecting, I think it's more of a performance, George. Is that fair? I think people want to see a performance more than a result because the game had gone last season after the first half. You know, we were chasing our tail for a bit of pride in that second half. That's why for me last season, I know many were, I wouldn't use the word elated, but they were kind of, you know, happy about the supposed comeback. I mean, with no disrespect, Raya passed the ball to Romero for the first one. And the second goal really was a bit of a miss as well. So, I mean, I couldn't take a lot away from last season. I was still really derailed by seeing in my lifetime a scoreboard of Tottenham 0, Arsenal 3. I've not seen that in my lifetime, and I never want to see that again. I mean, I am mentally scarred by this bloody football club. I mean, George, where are you for that on your perspective when it comes to seeing a performance along with a result? We have to show up, as many of the comments are alluding to.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, I mean, I agree with Billy. I'm the same. I'll firmly believe in Ange no matter what, but you can just see Twitter now, like everyone just going absolutely mental if we were to lose. But again, that's why I think the performance is so important, because I think there's been so many years in a row now where I've just been like, okay, now this is the one. We've got to turn up. We need a performance. This is it. If we come in out the gates firing, that's it. We can take the chances. We get the lead. That's it. We're going to build the confidence and go. And then lo and behold, the game kicks off and it seems like the players aren't bothered. Like that's happened a lot of times in the North London derby the last few years. So it's a big indicator into whether we have progressed from last year is how the players turn up in the game, what the performance is like, because they need to go into this game not afraid of Arsenal, of the fact that they've challenged the league the last couple of years. They need to go in thinking, we've got our game plan, we know how we want to play, we've got to beat them at home, set a precedent, and we've got to carry on that way. And I just fear that if we do crumble again into that sort of, oh no, we said we would turn up. I mean, Maddison had that interview yesterday.
Yeah, with Sports.
Saying they understand the importance of the fixture and they know the performance needs to be better. But then they've said this so many times before and then not put the action on the pitch. So that's the main thing for me. We've got to be playing well. They've got to show that they truly do believe what they're saying. And then hopefully along with that, the result will come anyway. But that is definitely by far the most important thing for me.
Yeah, I do agree. Look, it's some interesting stats out there. Lee's brought us some unfortunate ones already, which I was going to share, but thankfully Lee's done it already, so I have to tell you about the stats to some degree. But it's the 196th contest between Tottenham and Arsenal and the 65th in the Premier League. Arsenal 182 of the meetings, Spurs have 161. In the last decade, there have been 20 meetings involving Spurs and Arsenal. Tottenham are winless in their previous 4 outings against the Gunners, with their most recent victory, of course, in that season under Antonio Conte. Arsenal won 5 out of the last 7, losing just 1 after Spurs enjoyed that prosperous run before the COVID-19 pandemic. And you know what? You look at the fact, as Lee touched upon earlier, Arsenal have won the last 2 games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Another away win would mark their longest run since 1987. And I think when you put into perspective that Spurs have only won 2 times at the Emirates since 2006, we can't lose this one. We cannot lose this one on Sunday. We can't.
If Arsenal win, we've won more games than you against us.
I know. Man. It's crazy. This fixture, you know what? I think Gary Neville said it's his favourite one to commentate on. It's always got fireworks. You know, it's always got drama in this game. And I think a lot of it also is about discipline. You know, we talk about a lot about players keeping their heads. I mean, how many times have we seen this fixture a red card? And it's almost really, I think, really important under Ange that they'll get an inspirational team talk. They do keep their heads because despite Arsenal being under depleted to some degree, a sending off for Spurs, I think, changes the game completely in terms of the way they want to play. So we've got to keep 11 men on the pitch, got to keep our heads. And it's about keeping their heads. For those that have missed it, before we come to predictions, for those that haven't seen the latest news for Spurs, that Rodrigo Bentancur could be dealt with a worst-case scenario of a charge of the FA for potentially missing between 6 to 12 games. Now, Bentancur can feature for Spurs in this upcoming North London derby against Arsenal. And it will also be available for the Carabao Cup third round tie against Coventry on Wednesday, September the 18th. But should the FA choose to sanction Bentancur, it could leave Ange out a key player for up to 12 games. For those that obviously are aware of the charge, obviously this was due to an incident of a racial nature involving Heung-min Son on an interview he gave to Uruguayan television. We know, of course, for Spurs, they've got the Europa League to come. They've got, obviously, home and away games in between that. So we'll obviously be keeping an eye on Bentancur's future. Of course, the other alternative options for Spurs in midfield are Pat Matasar, Yves Bissouma in the deeper roles, and they've got James Maddison and Dejan Kulusevski to be used maybe as attacking number 8. So we'll just keep an eye on Rodrigo Bentancur between now and when that charge comes. I mean, just, you know what, that guy, bless his heart.
12 games. What's he saying? That's unbelievable. That's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, between 6 to 12 games, depending on how serious that FA racial charge will become. Obviously, he did apologise to Son at the time, but it's one of those things for Spurs that I think maybe we'll maybe surprised in the summer Spurs kept hold of Bentancur, because there may have been a feeling Spurs would have maybe moved him on. But I think when you look at the midfield options there, that's the one thing with Spurs I look at the moment that we are, in my opinion, lacking some real maturity and calm heads in midfield. And to be fair, Bentancur can be that player. And I think that's the one thing, I don't know if you agree, George, at the moment. You look at Spurs in general, we're looking at our midfield options. We've got a lot of youngsters in there, the likes of Bergvall, Archie Gray. Would you be surprised, George, to see them start? Do you think Ange will go with the tried and tested in terms of a Bentancur, a Sarr, a Bissouma, of course, if fit? What do you expect him to do from a midfield perspective?
I mean, I assume if Bissouma is fit, then he's going to start, because I think he's been brilliant the first 3 games. Oh, well, 2 games, sorry, because he missed the first one. But I think he's been brilliant in the games that he has played so far. So I think if he is fully fit, then no doubt he has to start in that sort of 6th position. I can see him. It's annoying. It's really frustrating, because I think Kulusevski has been really, really good for us from the beginning of pre-season until now. But he clearly is playing so much better in this sort of attacking 8 role or number 10 role alongside Maddison. I do just have some concerns that against a team like Arsenal, that playing 2 extremely attacking midfielders in the same setup, how will that hold up? So maybe having someone like Sarr, because he's just an engine, man, that he just runs non-stop, and I think he could be a real key asset against Arsenal. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's just, where do you fit Kulusevski into this side? Because for me, he's so important to how we play. He's not going to drop Maddison, despite Kulusevski, in my opinion, being the informed player for us right now. But will he play both against Arsenal? Potentially if we're at home, but it's up for debate, so I'm not too sure. But I think he's got to start somehow.
Yeah, I do agree on that. I think it'll be interesting what he does do, obviously, between now and the weekend. We'll obviously get Ange Postecoglou's press conference on Friday. Just also bring to you something you may not have seen in the last week on the realms of Spurs at the moment, with regards to, which is now a former Spurs scout, David Pleat. He was talking for the first time in public since he was let go by Spurs. He'd been a consultant since 2010. He brought in the likes of Jan Vertonghen, Dele Alli and Ben Davies, but he was told at the end of last season that his services were no longer required. He said, "I was called and informed. It's all data-driven now. We don't need eyes and ears. What nonsense. Data is all well and good. When it enhances eyes and ears, it not replaces them. I didn't argue at the time." He went on to say that from his perspective, that in the latter years of his broadcasting career, he was unable to devote as much time as he would have liked to the game, to care for his wife, Maureen, who was stricken with a degenerative form of motor neuron disease. She died in 2020, and as part of the profits from his memoir, were going to be donated to charities seeking a cure. Now, he said at the time, "I'm not expecting a fortune, but every little helps fighting that horrible disease. Not that they'll be selling any copies available in the Tottenham club shop. They're not selling it there. Something to do with it not being through the club's official publisher." He said, "It's funny. Arsenal gave Bob Wilson a seat for life. They're a classy club, Arsenal. I was told I can get a ticket at Spurs, subject to availability. Oh, well, there you are." Which I know for many that listen, watch Last Word on Spurs and follow Tottenham intently, maybe aren't surprised by the actions of our chairman, Daniel Levy. That book, for those that do want to buy it, is Just One More Goal. That is out right now. And uniquely as well, for those that are interested, Spurs are holding a fans forum. Not that we've been invited. You won't be surprised. That's going to be on Monday, the 23rd of September. That will be obviously, of course, coming very, very soon. It's obviously a similar event to last season. Lee, I've got to say to you, mate, you were shaking your head there in disbelief for our viewers there on audio. You've seen a lot during your time of chairmans, managers, owners. That just an own goal gaff from Daniel Levy where, listen, I know you've been on the show many times when I've had to comment on Daniel Levy. Just not surprised anymore, right, Lee? Just another really bad own goal take.
Well, I think he's done some good things for the club. Obviously, like, you don't have to look around the stadium and all that. But come on, that's for charity and all that. Like, he's served the club for so many years. You just help him out, it's for charity, for Christ's sake, like, you know what I mean? Why wouldn't you not do that? Why wouldn't you just do it? It's just PR is good on that. It's that's poor from Tottenham, like, Listen, there are Arsenal players that find it hard to get tickets and all that, like, it's not, like, you can't be just giving them out like confetti. I get that to a certain degree. You shouldn't be entitled to a ticket, but there's means and ways. But for something for charity, come on, like, I mean, like that. I just think, like, even you just make a space for it. I've gone past that Spurs shop today, like, you can just make a little space there and put some books on there for charity. That's poor. That is poor.
Bill, I know, listen, you love the football club, maybe not so much the ownership. Have we come to a point now, Bill, where we're just not surprised by this anymore? I mean, I know it's bizarre saying that, but just some of our actions at times, we do ourselves no favours, do we? We just do ourselves no favours.
Yeah. I was at that point 5 years ago with this guy, mate. I absolutely despise him, to be honest. I think we can certainly argue that we've improved in terms of recruitment and things like that, but some of the decisions he makes shows that he has absolutely no care for the fans or other human beings involved in this football club whatsoever. Don't forget, we were the first club to furlough our staff during COVID. We were one of only 3 clubs that wanted to oppose the decision to cap away European ticket prices this season. This man does not give a shit about us, to be honest. And this is the long line and a very long line of PR disasters for him against someone who scouted my all-time favourite player, Aaron Lennon, and many, many more. Defoe, Dele Alli, he was involved in the Gareth Bale transfer. This man has been an employee of Daniel Levy for 40 years. When Daniel Levy wanted to sack a manager before we had Ryan Mason, he would turn to David Pleat as a caretaker manager and bail him out at time and time again. And this is how we reward him. But I will tell you this, mate, if he wants a seat at Spurs, he can have mine because I'm gone by half time usually anyway. So my ticket's always available for him. You can have it for free.
That's quality. Well, he's listening to this, like, you know what I mean? Because that's such a nice thing to say, and I'll tell you what, I don't know how you feel about it, but like the former players and all that, those guys you're just talking about, Glenn Hoddles of this world and Martin Chivers before that, and they would, mate, if it weren't for them, they wouldn't be there. It's the same for Arsenal, the Liam Brady's of this world, and the Charlie Nicholases and blah 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 blah. The Emirates wouldn't be there if it weren't for those players, and it's such a, you shouldn't treat your old players. And as you said there, Bill just said that 40 years he's been working for Spurs and they can't let him have a little thing for his charity. You know what I mean? Really, he should be selling them outside, and I'm pretty sure he'd get a few sellers as well, like,
100%.
The thing that baffles me is that
we had a little bit of that with David Dean, like he weren't allowed to sell his book at the Emirates, stadium, like, because of the fallout with Arsenal. But any other player, like, Paul Davis, Liam Brady and all that, they've always given a little bit of a room to do it. Tony Adam, anybody that's played about a book, they've always had a book signing at the stadium. So, and I'm pretty sure that they're not all on the same publishers. There you go.
Yeah, the thing that baffles me is just like they pride themselves on being the amazing businessmen, which they have done in certain areas, but then these are just easy wins to have. Like you said, it's for charity, it's for ex-players or staff that have just contributed so much to the club there that you're going to get good PR back off of it. At the end of the day, it doesn't have to be their own publishers. If they sold the book in the store, no one's going to go in and just buy a book. While they're there, they'll get something else. It's a win-win for the club, no matter what. So it's just, I just find it strange that they seem to do one good thing, like say we've finally gone down like a different route with the recruitment. But then, like you say, they'll go a whole nother route and change the whole pensioner tickets prices, and now this, and then a few other things. So it's just, again, like genuinely, like on the football pitch, there's no consistency in the behaviour. It's just one good business thing, one bad business thing, one good football thing, one bad football thing. It's just it feels never ending, which I just don't understand it.
It's hard because at the point now where you are is it's a young team. You want to buy into the fact it's a young team, and you want to really feel that you can get behind the club. It's very hard when you see kind of ex-players, managers, whoever that may be, treating the way they're treated. It does just leave a poor taste in your mouth. Again, I do find it's quite ironic that with the fans forum they've got coming up, which is going to be obviously a week on Monday. I really want to see obviously how Spurs' form does play out in these next couple of weeks. I'm not saying that will change in terms of the forum itself, but I think all I would say about that forum is, with no disrespect to those that are going to that forum, I think it's fair to say they've been carefully selected. People that are going to that forum in the most politest way I can say that. I don't think you'll get any
invite. I didn't get an invite, so must
I
have
think
been lost in the post.
Yeah, I just wonder how many of the pre-prepared questions there will be beforehand in terms of what gets asked at these events, with no disrespect to those that are going. If you are going, obviously, of course, have a great time. We wish you all the very, very best. Not bitterness, but I just think it's interesting how these events are done from a ballot. But there you go. Look, before, like I say, we let's look ahead to predictions. It is, of course, let's turn our attention back to the game. This is the main talking point we're here for. Spurs Arsenal, big game. Injuries, of course, I say Arsenal the key. Spurs, we're going to wait to see on Friday with Ange where they go. Let's start with George. George, who needs this win more?
Well, I'd say surely us in a way. I mean, every club's going to want the win, but yeah, that really made me think.
It's a silly question. We do need this. We feel like we do need this.
It's a huge boost if we get a win here. Whereas you've seen sort of Arsenal challenge, bottle the last couple of years, that they'll know how to crack on with some of the rest of the games. So
we had to get a bit of spice.
Just a little bit.
It's been too friendly this long. It's been too friendly.
No, but honestly, obviously, it'd be a huge boost to get the win of the weekend. But I was just saying to you beforehand that until Sunday, I'm really excited. I'm obviously going to be really positive about the game, and I do expect us to come out fighting, wanting to win, getting the win. But then half an hour before kickoff is when we, until when I see the lineup actually, which is now an hour and 15 minutes before.
I know
that is when it will all kick in, and thoughts may change. But for now, I'm as confident can be going into this fixture.
We're going for George. We got a prediction from you. Sorry, bud. I know you hate doing this.
It's a classic for a reason. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. We don't keep a clean sheet. I know that.
No, exactly.
But I've got to believe right now on Thursday night that we're going to win. So I'll go for 2-1.
Love that, George. Thank you so much. Check him out, George Achillia, across the socials. I'm sure there'll be plenty of reactions to this one. Bill, thank you so much for going back on. We know you only be there for 45 minutes on the game itself. What we're going for, Bill? How do you feel going into this one now? It's getting closer and closer.
Yeah, well, last season I didn't even last 45 minutes, mate. I think I was home by half time, and I live in Harrow, so that was a benefit of going 3-0 down so early. Listen, mate, I'm a complete atheist, but in the build-up to this game, I pray to every god going. I pray to every suspicion. Don't walk under any ladders or anything like that. So I can't possibly predict us to lose, just in case that comes true in the universe. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. I don't necessarily think that'll happen, but I've got to put it into the universe, mate. So let's go for it.
Bill, you're a star. Thank you so much. This man, across a lot of pods these days, bless him. Dr. Tottenham being obviously one that we keep an eye on. So, Bill, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to having you back on us very, very soon. And
of course, mate, it's been a pleasure.
You're a diamond. You're a diamond. Billy_T across the socials. We do love him on X. Keeps us entertained, even if Spurs aren't. That's fair to say. Lee, it is always a pleasure, mate. We love having you on here. I love having you on here, mate. You're a diamond. I know we only can do it twice a season. We made that joke when you were only with Cracks and Norwood last time. That it's such a shame he's Arsenal because he would fit well in.
I haven't heard from him since. I don't know if it was because Arsenal won or I said he was very good in Coronation Street. I don't know what either one. I've been upset with me, So.
Well, I don't know. On the back of this, he got the gig with Strictly, so maybe you done him a favour.
Well, I might have done him a favour there, So well done to him, I ain't seen Anthony neither since the last time we beat him.
He's laying low now,
Spurs ground, you know what I mean? So he's done all right.
And bless him, he's about to go on tour with Ollie Murs. Every cloud. He's busy boy, travelling around the world.
We'll see George and Bill doing the bleating on the old flutes and on the roof in the next game. Like, you know what I mean? What's going on here?
If we win the game,
you ain't getting nowhere. Like,
I know. We're still stuck there doing this. Lee, how are we feeling, mate? Give me how you're feeling. And Joe, I want to ask you, because I didn't ask you this obviously during the show, with the business Arsenal have done this summer, do you feel you're any closer to City? You don't?
No, I don't. If I'll be really honest, I don't think we've done enough. I think that it's very difficult to improve on the team because we've got a bloody good team, but I felt we could have brought in maybe a top midfield player, another striker, but just numbers. I think we've got extra 4 games in Europe. Saliba also now playing regular for France, so that's more games that he's had. He used to go away for France last season and sit on the bench. Now he's playing every game, so he's playing another 10 games plus the 4, at least another 14 games more. So I feel that maybe we should have just strengthen the squad up a little bit, but I think if you speak to every fan, everybody say the same.
We all want more.
We all want more. You know what I mean? I feel like Oliver, and we all want more. So it's just one of those things. So at the end of it, we'll see. I just think we may be a bit light on depth. That's all. I think we've improved with quality. Yep. But not on depth. Do you know what I'm saying? I think we've got players that can go in positions. That's just what I feel. So, but we shall see. In Mikel, I trust. He believes in it, so I'm gonna trust him. And I'm gonna say that we'll win 2-0.
Okay, keep a clean sheet. Interesting.
Yeah. I believe in our defence and two balls over the top, Saka and Havertz just make my day. Just remember if that does happen, boys. And I'll look for that empty seat at half time,
It's front row behind the goal, mate. You can't miss it. Front row behind the goal.
Listen, we shall see. I think that it's one of those games where we all say we absolutely dread it in the build-up, and I think you can only ever truly enjoy it if you win it. And, again, it's a lot of different factors that go into this game for Spurs. You argue, as I said during the show, they may have the advantage with the couple of injuries Arsenal have got. Of course, we're all hanging our hat on the fact of Dominic Solanke being back available for Spurs as a front man and the return, of course, of Mickey van der Ven as well defensively. It feels like it's a big game. It's a big moment to come for Spurs. I want to say a massive thank you again to the wonderful George Achillia, to Billie T and Lee, judges from Arsenal Fan TV. Lee will be obviously hoping for an interesting reaction. Hopefully we'll be watching you later on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm sure we will be. If you do see me there, give me a nice wave. So that'd be a nice friendly wave,
I think I said to you at the top of the show, the Tottenham fans love him, which is quite concerning how much we have a love for Aguna, but he does always say it as it is and tell it as it is. So it has been a fascinating show, as always has been, from George, from Bill, from Lee, from myself. Guys, we've been the last one on Spurs. Over 4,000 have watched us live. We can't thank you enough for your support from us all. Please keep safe, keep well, and as always,